podcast dedicated to the music, movies, and culture of Generation X.
What is up, Slackers, and welcome to another episode of the Stuck in the Middle podcast. I am your host, Jason Eck, and boy, have I had an interesting week. Between some crazy shenanigans that are happening in my workplace that I am not directly having to deal with, I am indirectly having to deal with, and it's been kind of stressful. But also the fact that on this weekend, I've had some yard work to do. So it's been raining a ton this particular spring into summer, which means that, it might be, raining for a week straight, which means that your grass gets very long, right? And if your grass is too long, well, when you finally do have an opportunity to cut it for your first summer day, sunny day that you get, it's usually really long and takes forever. And, I have a fairly substantial, yard. It takes a lot of time. So I'm always doing basic maintenance, which means that the projects aren't getting done. I think I've mentioned that before. So one of the projects that a couple of the projects that have been hanging over my head is cleaning my front gutters. My ladder did not reach comfortably. It would have been rather dangerous. Needed to get that done, so I need to buy a ladder. But also we have been overrun with cute little bunny rabbits. Not so cute, really, when there's that many of them and the damage that they can do. And one of the recommendations is any kind of brush that you have, any kind of additional brush beyond your regular landscaping, you might want to go ahead and deal with. So I do live in a more rural part of our little suburban town here, and tons of wildlife, but ton of foliage. It's beautiful in the spring. We have a wetlands that's behind us that's protected, which, means that I don't have a lot of land. I think I mentioned this the last couple of podcasts. So nevertheless, on Fridays in the summer, I will often have the day off from work, which is great. So my whole plan is it's going to be nice most of the weekend. I should be able to get everything done. So I'm going to get rid of all this brush, which is all these, just all these trimmings and cuttings that I've been, doing, pruning plants and shrubs and trees and all that. But this is leaving cover for the rabbits. So, okay, this is going to be my project. And I'm going to probably be doing it over the course of the weekend, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a controlled burn, and I have a fire pit out back. I'm just going to burn stuff off, clean it up, keep going. In order to do that, I'm going to be cutting it up into smaller pieces. So, Friday, I get a fair amount done. On Saturday, I get some more done, get the whole lawn done, except for the edging. I still need to hit the edging. And again, cutting more brush back. So, when you're someone who has allergies and is always coughing and stuffy and all that, being in front of a fire for a couple of days isn't always the best. So, I've kind of already re-recorded once so far this evening, because I was just like usual, plus along with my other bad habits. So I'm going along really well. I tell everyone, hey, we're getting up early on Sunday. We're going to go to the early mass. So I have the whole rest of the day. So like I said, by Saturday evening, good chunk is done, which means Sunday it's going to be gutters, getting the ladder. So I'm going to clean the gutters, finish the brush, and finally, hopefully get my pool taken care of. Right. So everything is going on schedule, on plan. It's going great. So I'm getting to the last bit of cutting that I'm going to be doing. And I have one of those little shrubbery chainsaws. Nothing massive, nothing big. I think it's like not even a 12-inch blade. Like 8, 9, 10-inch blade, something like that. Not this massive thing, right? And there's that moment where your brain is saying to you, this is not the right situation that you're currently in. Yes, this is the last cut of the day. Then you're going to be done. And now you're going to be just burning this last section and you're done. This project that's been haunting you for weeks now, done. But my brain was sending me a warning. I'm cutting away from me, like everything right that you're supposed to do. And this chainsaw kicked back right into my left index finger. Now, thankfully, it did not sever it off. Didn't sever it off. That's great. But it didn't look good. So I'm like, okay, I got to go inside now. Drop everything. It's off. It's trigger, And I go to the backslider. And it's locked. Now, this is a good thing. I'm glad everyone locks everything. But I have been going in and out, right? And so I'm like, okay, do I need to go around front, go to the garage, whatever? Knocking. My wife comes to the door. Now, we have 3 kids, so we have been through blood and vomit and shit and everything, right? And she looks at my hand. She looks at my finger. And she looks like she's going to do like that fainting face. She's kind of like, and I'm like, whoa, what is happening? And she's like, that's so much blood. Like, that normally doesn't bother you. She goes, I know, but that's just so much. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to just clean it off. Or run it under the sink, whatever, clean it off. And I'm looking and I'm going, oh, that's not looking good. Okay. So put the pressure on it, like you're supposed to. And she's like going on to first aid, like WebMD. What do I do? And I'm like, it's a cut. I got to put pressure on it. Well, how long do you have to put pressure? What are you going to do? It says here, about 5 minutes, right? She goes, 5 minutes. Just consistent pressure. Great. I do that. It's 5 minutes, right? Take the pressure off. Look, not bleeding. Until I move like a millisecond. And then everything just opens back up. Badly. And the more I bend it, the more of the inside of my finger you can see. So, it's going to be a trip to the ER. So thankfully, when I got there, there's no one else there. No one else was there. It's never been like that in all the time that I've gone to this location. So I'm like, great. Go right in, got my new, brand new insurance card for the year, all that. Oh, great. Get checked in. So what are we seeing you here for? I'm like, I'm an idiot and, I cut myself with a chainsaw. And she looks at me like aghast. Oh, okay. All right. So pause for a second. I'm like, you're supposed to say, this kind of thing happens all the time. No big deal. And she's like, I can't say that, sir. I can't. That would not be truthful. I'm like, oh, so I'm the only idiot in town who's cut myself with a chainsaw. So they get me in, a lot of jokes, all at my expense. I was telling plenty of my own. It's an absurd situation to be in. And, got my finger all stitched up. Good times. It's been kind of a pain. Needless to say, all my projects did not get done. And in fact, doing much of anything has been a challenge. And with my job and even with the podcast tonight, I have to use, the keyboard and, the mouse. And, everything is just taken way too much time. Now I'm right-handed, so I do the right hand with the mouse and all that. But like typing has been such a pain the past couple of days. So I am the reason that there are warnings apparently on heavy equipment, or coffee. Content's hot. Yes, it is. So that was my weekend. So I'm hoping they say to come back in at the end of the week, take out the stitches, or I'll just do it myself. We'll see. Hopefully I can get all these projects done. So thankfully I'm almost there. Just couldn't get it done on Sunday. And then come in and there's all this, horse shit happening at work. And it's just like cool times. But that's not what this episode is about. So it's something I've been talking about doing for quite some time. And part of it is because it's a little bit embarrassing, right? And I think that some of the best stories are things that we've done that have been embarrassing. And sometimes it's a matter of our failures. And what has kind of stimulated this is my kids. I think about my own experiences and that there were sometimes expectations that were set for me. Excuse me. Because I was identified as being somewhat intelligent. I don't know what that means. What does intelligence means? But I had the kind of mom, no offense, mom, that could not receive that kind of information in any kind of positive and reasonable way where it wouldn't then become a device of, I don't want to say manipulation, but certainly a cudgel, which could be used in certain situations. So if I didn't get a particularly good grade, for example, you're too smart for this. You're so smart. And I expect more of you, right? I think sometimes as kids, like our immediate reaction is, oh yeah, well, I'm going to do less now, right? That was just kind of like the anti-authority in me. Or it's just like, okay, well, I can do worse. And I think I'm going to do worse. So I don't want to upset like those kind of expectations for my kids to say, hey, so what we've done when they've all reached high school is that we kind of set a baseline, right? Freshman year is kind of a baseline. Because if you can get A's and B's your freshman year, then chances are that you have the capacity and the ability to kind of keep going, right? In that kind of general range. And if you start to see a major drop in grades or a consistent drop in grades, then you probably have something that you need to address. So either the level of the class is wrong, or here's the key. Excuse me. They're not doing the work. They're not doing the work. Now that goes for everything and not just academics. So for example, my youngest son is a very talented basketball player. He has the height. He has the skill. But he doesn't just go out and like just shoot for hours. He did when he was younger, right? And one of the things that separates let's just use an example of a Michael Jordan and some, schlub on some C team in some foreign country is oftentimes going to be work ethic and the desire to be better. So Michael Jordan would go out and just shoot, even just free throws, for hours. He would like set a number. I need to sink 100 of them. And he would do that. The very best at what they do have the natural talent, but they don't rest on that necessarily. Now, some do. Some do. I'm not going to say that they don't. There are some who reach a certain level just purely based on talent. But at some point, a professional athlete, just using that as an example, their bodies might start to break down. You have to start being smarter with what you do, right? Using form and technique. Let's say you're a receiver. You're going to slow down at some point. So that means that you're going to have to be relying on route running and your ability to leverage and read coverages and space and all those kind of things, right? So I've never wanted my kids to just think that their natural talent is going to take them everywhere. And the reason that I experienced that is because my whole life has been a matter of natural talent getting me only so far. And if you would have asked teenage me if what I was doing right now for a living is what I had envisioned for myself, not a chance in hell. Now, what I wanted to do was to be a singer in a rock band. And that is our topic for tonight, because I'm going to kind of talk about one of the things that I've danced around, and that was one particular band and a significant failure for me. And it was because I didn't treat it as a professional opportunity, which it was. Okay? So this is the whole key. Here I am at 49 years old, and there are many things that I want to do still. And I recognize that I have to put in the work to do it, which is why I have recently actually started putting a lot more effort into some of the marketing, some of the social media. Like, I'm still doing like singular drops, but I know that I'm going to reach a plateau. So that's going to be incumbent upon me to push it to the next level. And I have to do that in ways that I haven't in the past. And my kids have really got me thinking about that. My youngest, I'm just picking on him, he has this drum kit that if, you're watching the video feed, it's sitting here behind me, and he took some lessons, but he would like just show up to his lesson. And then his instructor would be like, did you practice? And he'd be like, no. Or he practiced like an hour before he went to his lesson. Dude, just go down there and play. Just go down there and play because you want to do it. It can be something that you can enjoy, but also you have to put in work for anything that you want to do well. You have to. So here's a quick journey, right? So when I was in 7th grade, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. Even further back, all the way back into elementary school, whenever there would be a musical, I wanted to be in it. Now, everyone was in it, but I always wanted to be like a lead, right? I loved singing around a lot of people who sang. two of my aunts, very accomplished singers in their own right. Okay. And just music was my life, and I wanted it to be my life. And then, like, this is what I did. I think I mentioned that one of my talent shows, I did Duran Duran's Wild Boys. With a friend of mine, we used to sing on the street corner in Pratt Street in good old Meriden, Connecticut, where we'd get, little bits of coins here and there and go get candy, doing, new edition songs. So singing and dancing and all that. I wanted to be a singer. That's what I wanted to do with my life. Now, somewhat complicated by my hearing problems, being deaf in one ear means that I had to work extra hard for pitch, tone, etc., volume, all that. Sorry, it's going to be another coughing episode, guys. So I really appreciate your patience. I don't want to have to edit a million times. Like I said, I had to restart at one point because it was just too much. So if I want to do this podcasting thing seriously and professionally, I can't be coughing all the time, right? So maybe I need to go ahead and take care of myself a little bit better, right? Yeah, that's one of my lessons. I can't keep doing this and have coughing fits all the time, and even just in regular conversation. So anyway, doing all these little things, little musicals, all that kind of stuff, loving it. And into middle school, and Justin, who's been on the show, Don, who's been on the show, they were in a band, and I forget what they were called. And they had a different singer and a bass player, and they did the talent show. And they did Don't Forget Me While I'm Gone by Glass Tiger. And it was okay, right? It was okay. The singer was flat, and like, he knows this, so this is not like I'm saying anything, out of school or whatever. And like, one of the guys, I don't even think played an instrument, but like was up there. I forget exactly. Justin can correct me on this. But I mean, it was teenagers having fun. It didn't matter that it was, whether it was flat or professional. Like, they were getting up there and they were doing it. And that was the most important thing. But I was like, I could do that song better. Right? So as it turned out, I got to know those guys, and the invitation came to, come and practice and see how it goes. And that's exactly what we did. So I became a member of the band. And I think our name for the next year's talent show, so they did that talent show in 6th grade, and then in 7th grade, we did the talent show, and we did Whitesnake's Here I Go Again. Now, Justin has the video. I'll be very honest. I'm embarrassed because I kill a note, right? I don't kill in a bad way, like ruin it bad. Like, I'm doing good, and David Coverdale does this big, here we go, and I just, flat, ugly note. I'm like 12. Here I am, middle age, done so many things in my life. I'm sure done way more embarrassing things. Know that I have. I almost cut my finger off with a chainsaw. And I still told Justin I didn't want him to post it online because I found it too embarrassing. So I guess I'm going to have to say, Justin, post the video. It is what it is. I was 12. And I have to get over the embarrassment of something that happened like 40 years ago, or whatever it is. So stupid, so cringy on my own behalf that I even am like that. But that band was called Kamikaze. And then I think it was either 7th or 8th grade, we played a dance. It was my first date at a dance. And we did just a bunch of popular songs. David Lee Roth, Guns N' Roses, White Lion, a couple other things. And we just played the dance. Just got up there, did our thing. Again, was this like some groundbreaking, amazing performance? No, absolutely not. But you know what? It was so fun. And I really enjoyed it. And I had the first opportunity to be so Justin's family had this like studio, had a stage, it had monitors. And this is where I first learned that my hearing issues could sometimes be impacted with like monitor volume and all those kind of things, because I would want to turn up the volume on the monitors because I couldn't hear myself, but that's not the best for the band and like the mix and all those kind of things. So that's where I started to learn. Now, nowadays they have in-ear monitors, probably pretty sweet and something that I could work with, but nevertheless, this was, my opportunity to be in a band. It was awesome. So we had different iterations and different members. And at one point, we had a band that we were starting to do originals for the first time. And that was also really exciting. But at the time, I was listening to Faith No More, White Zombie, Metallica, that second, what was it called? Excuse me. The second album third album. So, Stain by Living Colour. That record was kick ass. I was really into that record at the time, and Pantera, right? So I wanted kind of heavier, kind of vocals, for some stuff, but then some of it would be a little bit. So there's also a little bit of Red Hot Chili Peppers influence there. Mother's Milk was a record I loved at that time. And we also would do some like prog stuff. So I guess prior to that, we did prog stuff. So stuff like Queensryche, for example. So that's when I started taking professional voice lessons. Because there were like these dynamic singers. And someone like Jeff Tate from Queensryche is an amazing, technically gifted singer. But he also learned how to do it all right. And like moving in between head and chest and where placement is on different sounds in the throat and, breath and chest control. I was very interested in that. And like the people that I went to were like this older couple, and they each had their different kind of takes on the voice. So depending on which songs we were doing was whichever one I would be with, right? So it really gave me an opportunity. I ended up doing like a recital. Here I am, like a teen boy. I got long hair, got the earrings in, all that kind of stuff. And I was doing like recitals where I was doing like German arias or show tunes and like Sammy Davis Jr. and stuff like that. So really trying to use all these different elements of my voice. So I'm incorporating that into the rock music, and I'm finding that I can be more dynamic because of this training. So here we are. We are in the 90s. So Justin ended up going to a different high school than a couple of us, right? And different members of the band, like I said, had come and go, but we still kept playing. And so Don had left at one point to go join another band, which that'll be a whole nother episode because they have an interesting story. And one that's similar to what I'm kind of talking about now, which is they decided to reform in their 40s, late 40s, like in the past couple of years, and like have another go at it, which is fantastic. Like it's wonderful that they did that. And I think I'd like to have them on, the podcast. So, like I said, different iterations. We ended up having this kid, Chris, come in. And like I said, we're doing originals. And I remember being at the studio, Justin's studio. And we're asking this kid, Chris, to just play a riff. Like, aren't you ever just in your room, like, writing riffs, just like riffing? And he's like, no, I just listen to bands and try to learn their songs. He had never tried to make his own riff before. And I'll admit, we put him on the spot. I'm like, dude, I'll write lyrics like right now, like to a song. Just give me something to work with. Just give me something to bop a melody off of, right? And he's like, I can't do this. And I think that was the moment that small group of guys had stopped playing together for the most part until Justin and Don got back together many years later. Like that was like the whole high school time for us. So middle school into high school, like that core group, once Don left, it was already kind of a chink in the armor. And then, Jay left. Actually, Jay might have left first. He was our keyboard player. At one point I was playing bass and singing. And then I think it got to the point where we were college age, and I was going to a just community college kind of thing. And, Justin was going to an art school, whatever. And I was just kind of rudderless, and just kind of floating in life. Still singing in the car, singing in the shower, all that kind of stuff. But I really wanted to be still playing music. I still thought I was going to get on a plane and go to LA and or at this point, I'm going to go to Seattle because that's where music is gone, right? So turns out Justin ends up joining this other band, and they are prog metal. They are Fates Warning, Queensryche, Dream Theater. Like, that's their jam. Now, it's not all they listen to, but thematically and musically, it's kind of that vein, and prog metal in Connecticut are very well known. So the lead guitar player and songwriter was guy Seth. Seth, very good voice. But like Hetfield used to say, he was finding it difficult to sing and play guitar at the same time. And Justin's like, hey, I know a guy, he can sing. Right? So sure enough, they brought me in. I think I've mentioned this on the show before. And, now, first of all, the guy who is writing and singing, these are his songs, this is his band, is inviting me in to try out for the band. That in and of itself is really an honor, like a privilege. And we went in and they, sent me their songs. I learned them all. And bear in mind, they all have their long hair, right? And jeans and chucks and, boots, whatever, metal. And I'm into all this at this point, starting to really veer into more independent territory. And, I think I come in, I got this weird pair of denim shorts that I can see them in my head now. They're big and baggy. And it was summertime, right? But I got thermals on underneath them with combat boots and like some tattered t-shirt. Cause I think I'm like punk rock as fuck, right? So here I am looking the way that I do. At this point, my hair is not long and, I'm belting out these tunes, but I figure I'm still, punk enough, but kind of in the way that Phil Anselmo from Pantera. Cause, you listen to that Cowboys from Hell record, for example, and even some of their earlier stuff. He had this higher register that he used, the shrieks and the yelps and all those kind of things, as much as he had the guttural stuff, right? I'm like, okay, you can do both. And I went in there and honestly, I killed it in a good way. I ate it, as the kids say. And that's awesome. Now, somewhere around the same time, and this is going to be the meat of the story, the meat of the story. I had answered an ad. In, I forget what it was called, like the something New Britain. It's not the Phoenix. That was up here in Boston. I forget what it was called. And it basically was like this band and, punk band, seek singer. Like goth punk band, I think is what they put on there. So I'm like, okay, well, screw it. Let's give it a shot. Seems interesting, right? I'm a singer. I think I'm into this stuff. I'll do it. Now, these guys are probably 10 years older than me. And they were a band out of, and here's the biography. We'll get back to the other band in a minute. So the other band was called Misconception. Misconception was a prog band. But I was going to meet a band called the Sanity Assassins. So the song would have come from Bauhaus, right? Sanity Assassin. They're out of East Hartford, Connecticut. At this point, they're in Berlin. 80s hardcore punk. Born as a power trio with Keith Grave on fuzz bass, Adam Schwartz, a.k.a. Adam Bomb or Eyeball, on guitars, and Pete Ricicchio at drums and lead vocals in the second half of the 80s, releasing over 40 titles from CDs to vinyls for different labels in different countries. After the split up of the Assassins' original three-man lineup in 1992, and here's where we get to the hard part for me, the group recorded a yet unreleased 4-song demo with well-known shimmy disc producer Mark Kramer using backup musician and friends. And in the same year, a 4-piece lineup realized a Ligature Vampire single for T-Pos Records. In the mid-90s, they played surf punk, with an English vocalist realized in 1997 their best album, Resistance is Useless, for Wretch Records. So every time I read this, I go, backup musicians and friends? Okay. But we'll get to that. So I go in with these guys and they tell me what they're into. Like, well, We're into bands like Pissed, but we're also into like, early Pink Floyd, like Umaguma and like the Syd Barrett stuff and Hawkwind. Do you know Hawkwind? Like Hawkwind, like, yeah. Lemmy was in Hawkwind. You know Lemmy from Motorhead? I'm like, I know Lemmy from Motorhead. Yeah, Well, his first band was like psychedelic rock, really cool stuff. Like a lot of noise, right? We're also into like Blood Rock. Do you know Blood Rock? Like, who is Blood Rock? Like, well, Blood Rock, they're a horror, like, rock band out of like the 60s, the 70s or whatever. And you got to listen to them. So they're like giving me this little crash course in all the shit that they listen to, which is not stuff that I was listening to. I think we agreed upon things like, Misfits, right? But I was listening to anything that was in punk was, current hardcore punk that was happening at the time. Your Josta 14s, your Earth Crisis, your Black Train Jacks, or Integrity, that kind of stuff. Not exactly Snapcase, another thing, that Carlos turned me on to. So we're coming from two very different places. So at this point, I would still say that my favorite band then and now, Faith No More, and I had been listening to, some of the rapcore stuff. So your, Rage Against the Machine would be like the logical one. And then, later on bands like, 108, but then, there was that whole, Youth of Today into Shelter thing. So again, shout out to Carlos for turning me on to those things that kind of had rappy elements to them. 108 in particular. So I'm like, you know what? I'm giving this a go because it seems interesting. And they played me some of the music and I'm like, okay. I think I get where they're going here. So, we do a couple of rehearsals just in this guy, Adam, right? Just in his living room, just the three of us. And when they talk about fuzz bass with Keith, facts, just this fuzzy sound. And, I think it was just like a regular, like a Fender Jazzmaster or whatever it was. And of course, Adam is playing, a Gibson SG, punk rock, but also obviously like many of the guys, into your Motorheads, your AC/DCs, the bands that were kind of on that rock and roll thing. So when the call comes from Justin and the guys in Misconception, hey man, you came out, you killed it. The guys in the band said it's never sounded better, and we want you in. Would you like to join the band? So of course I have this little bit of a crisis in me, right? Because love Justin, still love Justin. I was thinking I was too good for metal because that's not where music was. I'll be perfectly honest. I've said it before on the podcast. I'm a little shallow. So as much as like I could say, hey, I've listened to some really cool bands that are definitely under the radar, it's only because I had opportunities to meet great people who turned me on to that stuff. Did I eventually seek it out on my own? Sure. But a certain part of my life, particularly when I'm 19 years old, no, man, I still got my eye on some stuff that's definitely mainstream as much as I'm intrigued by the stuff that's more underground. So I'm like way too full of myself. I'm like, no, man, I'm going to do this, this goth punk gig with these guys and, it's punk rock, man. These guys are like real punk rockers. Like one of the dudes, he's got his own record label. It's called Wretch Records. Wretch Records. That's right. How punk is that? A record label named for vomit. That's right. So I turned down the opportunity to join Misconception. I think about a couple months later, I kicked myself when they were opening up for Dee Snider's Widowmaker. But I don't think I actually would have done a good job. And that's where we're going to get into kind of the story of the big failure. And one that I still am obviously bothered by. And I'm trying to find a way to redeem myself, if you will. So, we start writing music together. They play me their stuff, kind of the stuff that they're working on. And basically, we get it down to 4 songs. Now, the first song, we end up recording together with this guy named Jim Chapdelaine, also in the same Connecticut area. And it was a song called Visions of a Twisted Mind, which is about Edgar Allan Poe. And it was meant to be kind of a slow, very little bit trippy, psychedelic, like kind of an interesting groove and vibe. And, you know, I was trying to approach it from a little bit of like so here's another thing about singing. When you're always in cover bands for the most part, or if you're trying to shoehorn into a style outside of your own, or do you even have a style of your own? Now, I didn't have a style of my own. I sang in ways that I was emulating the voices or stylings of others. So if someone says, hey, the vibe of this song is a little bit Misfits, I'm going to try to sing it like Glenn Danzig, right? If someone tells me that, hey, this song's a little bit Red Hot Chili Peppers, I'm going to go nasal and I'm going to do it Anthony Kiedis, right? Now, there are benefits to some of the things that I was able to do with my voice then, where I could be very versatile and go in between these different kind of styles and sounds. It's great if you're in a cover band. But if you're doing originals, yes, you want to have some versatility, but you still want to be rooted in a certain concept and idea about what your particular vocal tone and style is. But again, listening to a lot of Mike Patton, it's like, no, every song can be different. And these guys were extremely supportive of that. They found that intriguing because they felt like each one of their songs was very different from each other. So that's where, in theory, this should have been a perfect fit, right? So the song Visions of a Twisted Mind, we recorded. And like I said, it's slower and just kind of it's a gothic tune about a gothic guy. It's about Edgar Allan Poe, you know? Now, this ends up being included on a compilation record out of Denmark through a magazine called Adventure Magazine. I forget which volume. I'll actually post it. I have a copy of it on vinyl, a copy of it on CD. Excuse me. And this was 93? Yes, this is 93. And like, it's this big European fanzine, or at least it was in Denmark, a big fanzine, because Smashing Pumpkins were in it, and like Nirvana was in it. Like, there were big bands in there, and bands that I was familiar with, and then a bunch of like weirdo stuff that I'd never heard of before. But when you get vinyl, someone hands you a magazine that you're in, that you went and did a photo shoot in a cemetery, and there's your name. Holy shit. We've just had this compilation record released. There are people out there who have just bought this. Now, I'm not saying they bought it for us. They didn't. But certainly we were a curiosity. We were part of this comp and had ostensibly a release in some foreign country that people got to listen to. I was like, oh my gosh. Some people have never done that. Now, obviously, everyone now can just go and, you know, put up Bandcamp and have their song put out, you know, all around the world. But back then, that wasn't the case. So I'm thinking this is all the right decision. I have made the right decision by joining the Sanity Assassins and not Misconception. So now we have this one song in the can. We got to start working on the others, right? Because your demo, if you would call it a demo, you know, is going to be anywhere from 4 to 6 songs. So great. We're going to do 4 songs. So Visions from a Twisted Mind is the first one. The second one is called The Door, which is very, very short. And it was described to me as, imagine psychedelic Donny Osmond. And you are embodying a character of a little boy. So you're going to sing it in a, like, not even power pop, like a teen heartthrob. It's like, imagine Donny Osmond's Puppy Love. And you're going to sing it in this very kind of like high voice, like a Frankie Valli in a way, is how I can describe it. It's like, do it like a teen idol, but like a little kid. Because the song about the door is that the guitar player, Adam, found that doors were really terrifying as a kid because what was on the other side of the door? he would get nervous about opening and closing doors. It's his own little hang up, right? So he needed to get that out. Okay, great. We're going to record this song. And I needed to channel a little boy. Okay. Got that in the can. Got a voice for it. Found it. I found that voice. Great. Then we had this other song that, oh gosh, I'm forgetting the name of the last two songs. And what's ridiculous is the last one I wrote. So the next song was One Careless Step, something like that. But this was allowing me the opportunity to kind of step into a rappy style, right? I was thinking about kind of like Zach De La Rocha, the way he would put emphasis on certain syllables and certain sounds, and how the song in itself would build rage. Because that's really what it was. It gradually built up. It had like a keyboard intro. And then it got heavier and heavier as it went on, and angrier as it went on. Like one of the lyrics is, so I set my alarm and I put things in place. And then it has a chorus that's not upbeat, but definitely up-tempo. Just kind of a weird mishmash of songs, right? But we got that kind of down. Okay, great. Had a framework for it, kind of knew what we wanted to do. Great. You know, just a little 4-tracking whatever in the house. So then they start writing this other song. And they're like, we don't know where this is going to go. So we just started jamming, and they just kind of let me contribute. And I wrote all the lyrics, and I forget what I named this song. Like all these years later, I don't remember what I called it, which is ridiculous because I have the lyric sheet somewhere, like every word. And this was much longer, and it was basically a song about like mental health and kind of going in and out of kind of different characterizations, but also, you know, feelings of both agoraphobia and claustrophobia, and kind of like holding yourself together. But then I remember reading that story about the guy who murdered a whole bunch of people and then blamed it on his dog. Oh, the dog told me to do it. And that was kind of like the basis for the song, where your dog is kind of telling you what to do, right or wrong. Basically their whole lyric in there is like, don't do this and don't do that, because the dog is basically the one who is your conscience, right? Anyway, some weirdo bullshit. So we get everything kind of roughed out, basic sketches, like the pre-demos, if you will, really just the earliest versions of the songs. And this guy, Jim, was like, you know, I think you guys should just really, really record this. Like, for real, though. Like, with someone beyond my skill as a producer. So this is where we have a tremendous opportunity. And we had an opportunity to record. Now, of course, we had to pay money for this. So bear in mind, I'm also scrounging up money for a recording session. And this was supposed to be a real opportunity for all of us. And like I said, these guys were older than me. They've been doing it for a while. And this was big. So somewhere in 93, we get the opportunity to record with Shimmy Disc founder and producer Mark Kramer, member of bands like New York Gong, Shockabilly, Bong Water, which you probably most know, and Dog Bowl. He has played on tour, usually as a bass guitarist, with bands such as Butthole Surfers, Ball, Ween, Half Japanese, and the Fugs, and has also performed regularly with John Zorn. John Zorn, who's also good friends with one of my favorite artists, Mike Patton from Faith No More. He has produced Galaxy 500, Low, Love Low, Half Japanese, White Zombie, Guar, King Missile, Danielson Famille, Will Oldham, Daniel Johnston, and Urge Overkill, including their hit cover of Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon from Pulp Fiction soundtrack, if you recall. Yeah. This is who we were going to record with. This was a great opportunity. So the night before, I did not party. I didn't go out. But as I am currently doing, where I'm coughing here while recording this podcast, I was smoking cigarettes, whatever, but nothing out of the ordinary. And in fact, I went to bed early because we're going to be up and at 'em because we're going to be driving to New Jersey. So, like I said, hit the hay, ready to roll. I wake up the next morning and I feel like garbage. This is also summer. Yes, I have allergies, all that, but I was not feeling good. My voice was really, really scratchy. Really bad. But this is a huge opportunity. We have booked this time. So Jim Chapdelaine, the other producer, he's going to be playing dobro and rhythm with us. And we have this other guy who is playing drums, filling in on drums, from a band called the Gophers, I think, who it turns out was dating my ex. Didn't even know that. So we get to this guy's house and we end up going into this beautiful studio where actual, legitimate, honest to goodness, signed bands have recorded some amazing music. And this is awesome. Now, bear in mind, I've only been in the studio with Justin's dad and Jim. I'm thinking I'm going to get like multiple takes and like coaching. Hey, bring that up a notch. You know, I'm completely ignorant of the process, which is if you're here recording, you're like a professional. You're coming in and you're banging it out. We've never played live at this point. Now, mind you, I'm saying this, and it's like I'm making excuses. And it's a little bit of excuse making. Never recorded the songs live. We weren't tight with them, right? So, but I record the songs, and there's times I'm like, oh, can I do that again? They're like, dude, no. I'm like, what? Nothing. Go in, record. I'm in a different room than the band. I thought we were recording live together kind of thing. No, I'm in the booth. They're out playing. I've been much more comfortable just in the room with the band. But no, I'm tethered to this, microphone. Again, making tons of excuses here, right? So I'm struggling. And Kramer comes out at one point because it's all with his engineer. He's not with us during the recording process at all. Just the recording engineer. And he's like, okay, I'm going to smoke a bone. I'm like, oh, can I hit that with you guys? And he just looks at me like I'm a mother bleeper, right? And just like, well, I don't really think you should. I'm okay. And the reason he was saying that is because in his estimation, I sounded like shit. Now, I've been in all these bands. I performed live before, like, comfortable performing live in front of people, everything from, like I said, plays to karaoke to rock bands and parties and all that. Done it all, right? Except for like playing in like a big club or whatever. So all the recording is done. And he comes out and he's just twiddling knobs. That's what he does. I am passing no judgment on him at all. In fact, it was all me. And he's like, oh, all right, well, I got to fix this because the singer's out of tune. What key is he singing in here? Now, this is that song, The Door, right? Where I'm like emulating like this, dream pop, like, whatever voice that I was doing, Teen Idol voice kind of thing. And he's just ripping my shit the entire time. Like, absolutely. He's doing like pitch corrections and all that. He's like, I'm going to do my best, but whatever. So every time I read this yet unreleased 4-song demo with well-known shimmy disc producer Mark Kramer, it breaks my heart a little bit. It was a hard ride home. Because we're listening to like, the dub version that we have, and I'm not feeling good about it. They're not feeling good about it. We've just thrown our money down the drain. And I've essentially thrown any ideas about a music career out the door. Now, some of you might say, well, stop right there. You didn't have to. It was a failure. You could have learned from it. I did not react well to that situation. Now, here's what's worse. By the time we got back home to Connecticut, it is like I'd never had a sore throat. All in my head. A complete psychosomatic ailment because I was feeling stress. I choked. I am Scott Norwood, laces out, choked. And I never talked to the band again. Like, I was dead to them. I wasted their money. I wasted their time. And I wasted a, rock legend. I've wasted his time at his own house in his studio, where he has been working with real musicians who came in prepared and probably knocked it out in one take. I've never played in a band again. I tried out for one band up here in Boston once. But yeah, it was one of those failures that really stuck with me. I did start to record my own music. I want to say 95, 96. Bought myself a 4-track, was, really working on my guitar playing and singing. I have a couple of little ditties that I did here somewhere. But then someone kind of gave me negative feedback about one of them, and I just was like, you know what? It isn't for me. My childhood dream was based on a dream because I didn't have the drive, and I let failure impact me far too easily, and I crumpled under the pressure. Now, the reason I talk about this and wanted to talk about this, I would love if someone could put me in touch with Kramer. I have tried reaching out to our bass player, Keith, and say, dude, get me the masters. I will redo them now. 2023. Got to stop smoking so I don't cough and hack and all that and have my full voice back. But I kind of want to do, you know the show Tosh.0, that show? And Daniel Tosh would be like a web redemption. I want a web redemption. I want to re-record those songs. So I have the demos here somewhere. I could learn the lyrics and all that, and I'd love to do it again. So I'm gonna tag Shimmy Disc on this, episode when it drops, because I'd love to have the opportunity to fix it. Because that to me would be the only way to say that I actually took a failure and did something with it, instead of just carrying it with me. What's the moral of the story? I think like many of us, there were things that were failures and successes at different points in our lives that we reacted to better. Maybe we had a couple of successes and our heads got a little too big and we didn't think that we had to do the work. Of course, I'm talking about myself. And then that first big failure comes, and because you've blown smoke up your own ass for so long, you kind of were like, oh shit, I've just failed miserably and impacted other people. That's unacceptable. That's what I say to my kids, like, if you're on a sports team, you have to put in the work because you're also obligated to other people that are on your team. That's a band too. You're obligated to the other members of the band. In your workplace, you're responsible to the people that you work with. Like whatever it is, in your families, like, here I am with my wife and my kids. I have a responsibility to them. Hell, I got a responsibility to my dog. People, if you're going to have a dog, take care of your dog. Just saw a video of some dude who took his dog and out into the woods and just dropped it off and drove off. What the hell is wrong with you? Anyway, I digress. Because what I want to do is there are a bunch of things that I didn't accomplish, that life isn't over yet. So why not accomplish them now in middle age? There's nothing stopping me from doing any of those things. And there's nothing stopping any of you from doing any of those things. Look, if there's someone who's listening to this right now who has a significant physical ailment, I don't want someone who, is completely infirmed who's going to be like, I always want to jump out of an airplane and you can't. You know what I mean? The only reason I'm saying that is that a lot of times people get in a motivational speak and they're like, well, you're only defined by how your mind defines you. No, dude, you can't tell someone who has, no arms and no legs that they can, you could be a ballerina. You can't. You know what I mean? You could do anything that you want. I want to fly. You can fly in a plane. No, I want to fly. Oh, well, you can get one of those squirrel suits. No. I want to fly. You can't. Like, there's some things that can't be done. So I don't want to be all cavalier and go, hey, put your mind to it. You can do anything. Guess what? I can put my mind to it. I will never hear in stereo. Because I'm deaf in one ear. Imagine loving music and never being able to hear deaf. Well, at least you can hear music. If I never heard music, I wouldn't know what I was missing. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's all perception, right? It's all how we kind of perceive these situations and the own twists that we put on them and how we shape our own vision. One of the things that's interesting, I was talking about hearing, there's a bunch of videos out there where parents of kids who are fully deaf, who require hearing aids to hear, the kids don't always want to put on their hearing aids because they're going from things that are quiet and silent, and then the world gets very, very loud, right? So keep that into perspective. You know what I mean? Well, you should be grateful that you have these hearing aids you can hear. But that's not their natural state of being. Their natural state of being is in silence, as it was from the moment that they were born. That's a cacophony of sound every single time, right? So it's all about our own perspectives and how our own lives are driven. So what do you think, folks? Should I go ahead, try to find these guys, maybe try to find the demos and record them? Why not? Why not? If there's anything that I have been wanting, and I have a list, and I'm going to post that list. That's why I've been waiting about this episode. There's a list of things that I've always wanted to do that I need to do before I croak. And you never know the day in which the day might come. So I better get started because I'm not getting any younger. So yeah, let me know. Go for it. But also let me know, what are some things that you've always wanted to do that maybe you haven't? Or what are some things that you think you'd be interested in seeing me try to accomplish? Because maybe there's some things that, you might find interesting. I have one idea. My wife is not going to be thrilled about it, but holy cow, if I can pull this off, I think it would be very, very cool. Let's just say there's ghosts involved. Or not ghosts. We'll see. But there's something I have kind of cooking that I think would be really, really cool. And it might be my first live stream. So anyway, let me know. And how do you do that? You can email me at stuckmiddlepod@yahoo.com. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at StuckPodX. Head on over to the Facebook page, Stuck in the Middle, a Gen X podcast. Please like, share, comment, leave 5-star reviews, and most importantly, please subscribe to the podcast. So until next time, later, slackers.